Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A little bit of a dark topic. Let's do it. People who work in certain professions, what's the scariest thing you know that the public does not? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Lifeguard. I cannot explain to you how quiet and how fast drowning is. Even people with some idea tend to think, okay, so barely any noise. No, there's nothing. You might get some splashing right at the beginning if someone's just panicking, but I've seen an adult man get into trouble with absolutely no sound. Even if someone can get their mouth out of the water, they're so locked in on breathing and not dying that they won't yell. Their arms and legs are under the water, and they're struggling so hard that nothing can make it to the surface to splash. You won't hear it. Please, 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 do not take your eyes off your kids in water, even the bath, for even a second. That's all it takes. In my career, I've seen drowning, but I've been fortunate enough not to see drowned. Would love for it to stay that way. As a librarian, you'd be horrified how many books we got returned we have to throw out because they're absolutely covered in bed bugs. We put a block on accounts and notify patrons, but I'm specifically told not to mention this problem to the public whatsoever by management. Vet meds has one of the highest suicide rates of all professions due to a mix of emotional and financial stress, combined with easy access to fatal drugs. Almost everyone in the industry knows at least one person who has died by suicide. I work in homelessness. There's a lot of scary stuff about this work that people are probably aware of or intentionally ignorant of. But one of the most scary or shocking things I learned in this work was pretty early on in it. There are lots and lots of reasons that people experience homelessness, maybe dirty or not shower frequently, but I've had it reported to me multiple times that a female client is refusing to shower, practice hygiene, because being dirty or unclean or stinky prevents men from awing her when she's sleeping outside. Both very scary and very sad. Climbing into an unventilated manhole can kill you in seconds, and you wouldn't even know anything was seriously wrong. You think that's air you're breathing now? Manholes can fill with gases that are heavier than breathable air. You think you're breathing normally, but instead you fall unconscious and suffocate from lack of oxygen. I work in a shelter. Some of our guests are from middle and upper class backgrounds. Bad choices, bad health, bad treatment, and bad luck can happen to all of us, sometimes very quickly. As far as I can tell, the only thing all homeless people have in common is trauma and loss. As a mechanic, I have to say that the colder and more distant a mechanic is, the more likely they are to be honest. It's the really friendly ones who are ripping you off while they're being chummy with you. You know how you worry about getting your frozen and refrigerated groceries home and put them away before they spoil? Overnight stalkers don't. Kids are incredibly behind where they should be in terms of education levels, and they just keep getting pushed through. As in, I have a graduating high school senior that doesn't know what 5 times 4 is, and can't pronounce the word illuminate. I used to work in child protection. The people most likely to harm your child or you are people you already know, most likely family members. You can bar the door against bad men lurking in the dark alleys, but when you do, remember who you're looking in with you. As a nurse, it's unsettling how many patients I've seen who come in for routine procedures and end up with life-altering complications. It's often a result of rushed care or overlooked details. People assume hospitals are infallible, but the reality is that even in the best facilities, human error can lead to devastating outcomes. Always advocate for your health and never hesitate to ask questions. Working in the sleep world, many people go to bed every night with untreated, undiagnosed sleep apnea. It's not entirely uncommon to see people's oxygen levels dropping to the mid-70s every night, and this is part of their normal routine. Incredibly dangerous, and awareness should increase further. I'm a teacher, And all I can say is that you should teach your kids. Teach them from an early age. Teach them at home. Drop your phone and teach your kids. Trust me, no one else will. As for us teachers, we're too busy implementing useless strategies to pass inspections and keep the admins happy. A little late to the party, but I do electrical safety work for power systems in large factories, and those things can be nightmare fuel. Everyone knows about electric shock. You touch something that is live and the electricity passes through your body. It can cause you to lock up, grip, and be unable to let go, or even kill outright. Fewer people know about the electric arc flash. Instead of the electricity going through you, it can go through the air to reach another conductor. Doing this creates an immense amount of heat that essentially causes a small explosion. Small arc flashes are scary, but survivable with the right PPE. Arc-related, not just fire-resistant. Large arc flashes are only survivable in arc flash suits that are just bomb suits. People outside of electrical work probably aren't familiar with arc flash suits, but electricians can tell you they're no joke. And they shouldn't be, because that level of heat turns you from biology into physics very quickly. There's not much that is terrifying in the world of mortgage lending other than the finality of wire fraud. You're getting ready for closing, communicating with the closing agent daily. They send you their account numbers for your wire, and you send a huge wire transfer of all of your savings to make the biggest purchase of your life. Then the next day, the title agent asks when you're going to send that wire. It never arrived, and they've never seen the account numbers that you used. That money is gone. No one can recover it, and no one is on the hook. It's been entirely stolen from the buyer. I work in a state mental health care hospital. We have many patients with violent histories, even some that are incarcerated but placed in the hospital for competency evaluation or as judgment penalty. They tell many stories to new employees in orientation. One is told to emphasize the importance of observing and protecting patients in temporary restraint. Many years ago, before they had the rule of continuous one-on-one observation on restrained patients, a man was placed in a restraint chair and left alone for several minutes in a hallway. Another patient came up and decided to pull the restrained man's eyes out. I can't imagine being in that poor man's position. We have to sit in the restraint chair and be strapped down during training, so we see how it feels to be unable to move and to emphasize that the importance of fixing the straps so the patient can't harm themselves or anyone else, but also not so tight that they lose their breath or regular blood flow. When my turn came, I kept thinking about the terror that man must have felt, unable to move, unable to escape or fight back. The only chance of help is to call for staff that you also don't trust because they just put you in this position. It's so aft. I feel like school districts have or are like microcosms of larger government where the main interest should be the care of the student, or in big government, the care of its citizens, but they've kind of sold their morals off to the highest bidder, or the lowest bidder, actually, to give you whatever works best for them on a byline or a spreadsheet. Kind of sucks. I used to be a teacher. Every year, or every so many years, we have professional development sessions to attend where we're sold on a curriculum and how this one will help our children, blah blah. It's a whole big thing. There's buy-in, there's the excitement, and the whole dog and pony show about why this curriculum is the right one for our kids, because of course it's about the kids, and they come first. Color me surprised when a teacher asked, "When are we doing a curriculum training on this particular thing?" And the district person says some bullshit about how it's not on sale anymore, so we are no longer using it. And actually, we're buying this one now, because if we sign up for this training and invite this speaker to come here, we get 30% off the curriculum for the next 3 years. Rinse and repeat. Education is a fucking business. The curriculum aren't special for the kids. They're on effing sale. The laxity in healthcare facilities. The staff is under such stress, here in Canada anyway, that a lot of corners are cut to try and save time. But it eventually always comes back to bite you in the ass. Hygiene protocols not respected, patients left in their filth because you have one nurse for 40 people with alarms going off everywhere. Sterilization processes not being followed as they should, increasing the risk of nosocomial disease. The list can go on. I remember starting to work and being all happy about helping people, and in the long run, you have to adapt to this shitty place because if you try to follow the norms, you will quickly get reprimanded for wasting time and resources or whatever by your superiors. The longer I work by helping, the more bitter I become. You're basically fighting a battle that cannot be won, no matter the effort you put in. It's sad because at the end of the day, the patient will be the one to suffer. Not saying all employees do their work correctly, hell no. I see plenty of lazy-ass people, but the system rewards those people the same as the one breaking his balls off trying to fix it. The longer I try to do good, the more cynical I'm becoming in this society. I do hair for a living and have for the last 16 years. It's probably how many hair professionals clean their tools. Everything metal, clippers, shears, etc. should be sprayed with disinfectant spray. Combs go directly into barbicide after use. If you drop one, you're not supposed to pick it up until after the service. If you drop a tool like shears, you can pick it up, but you need to disinfect it, wipe it down, and wash your hands before you touch the client. And your barber or stylist should never be pulling a comb from the barbicide to use on you. They're supposed to sit in the barbicide for at least a few hours, and then the jar gets dumped. Everything rinsed and dried off, fresh barbicide in the jar, combs in a sanitary container. I've lost count of how many violations I've seen over the years, and some of it, to most people, seems like overkill. But diseases like ringworm can spread very quickly if clippers or shears are not thoroughly disinfected between each person. Probably how painful and long dying naturally can take. I work in memory care and have cared for so many people dying. It's not a nice conversation with a loved one, and then peacefully drifting off to sleep like in the movies. Sometimes it can take days, up to 2 weeks once they transition, before they take their last breath. Sometimes they scream and writhe for days while unconscious until they pass. Morphine should be a human right. Assisted suicide should be a human right. Former child actor. Quiet on the Set is probably one of the most accurate depictions of the child entertainment industry you can currently get. The industry is not built around keeping your children safe and happy. They will be exploited, whether that's through making them do sexual stunts, lines, scenarios, turning their physical appearance into the butt of a joke, or simply being unable to express discomfort about something they're asked to do. I was very lucky. No one ever abused me that way. But there are things I've done that I don't think I, as a painfully self-conscious depressed teen, needed to do. I don't think I needed to be hired to do is the main character gay bit because I'm androgynous. I don't think I needed to have my cleavage accentuated at 15 years old. It absolutely affected the way I viewed myself and damaged my self-esteem permanently. I weighed about 100 pounds and had a goal weight of 85. I was not allowed to be the fat kid. Dilution is the solution to pollution. I work in the cleaning industry. You wouldn't believe the things I've seen. I've been in kill plants, chicken, beef, pork, pet food processing plants, hospitals, hotels, schools, you name it. I've been there. They all stand behind this motto. The EPA stands behind this motto. OSHA stands behind this motto. And you think recycling matters? Laughing my Without oversight, this planet is literally being poisoned. We're being poisoned. No one in a high-value position cares. This is how some people get paid and put food on their table, by turning a blind eye. Stepping barefoot in a puddle of hydrofluoric acid or exposing that much skin to the stuff in general is absolutely lethal, and no one would really be able to know what happened to you. nor would you even think much about it at the time if you weren't aware of what it was. HF is technically a weak acid, think vinegar, so it's not going to burn you like hydrochloric or sulfuric acid would. However, you'll start developing vague flu-like symptoms and stop breathing in around 3 days unless you treat the exposure immediately. Calcium gluconate gel is the gold standard. The extremely simplified explanation is that it just draws enough calcium away from the stuff that keeps you alive. And unless you neutralize it with a big whopping dose of the stuff locally, you're pretty much doomed. While its use is fairly specialized, it's not nearly as controlled as one would expect, given just how dangerous it is. That foreign IT contractors, mainly from India, work in the healthcare industry, likely share their passwords and/or computer screens with unvetted friends who view confidential patient information. I believe this is true because I could often hear them talking to each other while on the phone with me. I'd help a contractor with stumping, like logging in, but there would be a whole room full of guys on the other end of the phone, and not across the room, like literally sitting next to the contractor, talking to him. I suspect maybe they were sharing the workload. One guy's salary split between multiple people can still be a lot of money over there. A bridge was built in southern Nevada about 15 years ago at the cost of $150 million. Despite all the fail checks and safety checks and layers of professional engineers, a potentially catastrophic failure was found by the junior engineer as he walked the bridge for a final check before it was opened for traffic in a huge public rollout. Expansion joints are absolutely crucial to any bridge. Simply put, they allow sections of the bridge to move slightly to account for wind and temperature fluctuations. As the engineer walked the bridge, something seemed off. He walked the bridge for a second, then third time. The bridge was designed and constructed with no expansion joints. By the time the faulty bridge was brought down and a new bridge was designed and constructed, the final cost was above $400 million. Not a word was released to the public. As a surgeon, families keep their loved ones who are dying alive because they cannot accept death. This leads the medical team to basically prolong and basically torture people to death. Imagine your frail grandma on death's doorstep and her heart stops. The family wants everything done because she's a fighter. So our team does CPR, breaks her ribs, intubates her, drills a needle into her tibia for an IO, stabs her groin for a central line, gets her heartbeat back, and proceeds to poke and prod her dying body for another week in the ICU. Not to mention, this costs the healthcare system insane amounts of money. Most of my friends in medicine do not want any of this kind of care for ourselves and our loved ones. I work at a very large and prestigious oceanography institute studying climate science and climate change. And yeah, we're big time. Fisheries collapsing, microplastics and everything everywhere, oceans rising and acidification, storms getting gnarlier, mass extinction, the list goes on and on. Many of my peers were childless, and I think I know to high grade depressed because we were watching our planet die on a macro and micro level. Of course, there were many optimistic aspects of research and fun projects, but overall, we knew we were just rearranging the chairs on the Titanic. Toxicologist. The world is literally food. Everything you eat, drink, and breathe is poison and affecting your organs, cells, and DNA. You're irreparably damaged by stuff the environment from 40 years ago that isn't degrading, and it accumulates everywhere. You could be exposed to something as a child that will lead to a neurodegenerative disorder when you're 45. Your fertility is decimated. Every man is now 1/8 of their grandfather in terms of sperm count, and not even going off grid is going to protect you from pesticides, because even if you aren't using it, your neighbors might be, and it's seeping into the groundwater. I've had to accept that health is relative, and we're giving our children a toxic nightmare from which they will not wake up. Entomologist working on disease and pest control for an organic farm. Growing seasons are rapidly getting longer, which means longer reproductive periods for insects, to the points where we're seeing some of them completely bypass traditional seasonal gap periods. Higher temperatures also mean much higher rates of evaporation and evapotranspiration, so general humidity has been off the charts. This leads to outbreaks of fungal diseases you would never expect to see at certain times of year. Even in non-agricultural settings, fungus and mold growth have been unnervingly bad this previous summer. While everyone's rightfully worried about cooking or burning to death, people aren't considering that we're barreling headfirst into the era of fungus and wet bulb deaths.